What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Commentary free Jimmy Smith and Ryan Moody, our MMA show, taking a look at UFC Fight Night, Benavidez versus Figueiredo. We're going to start with an interesting matchup, a matchup that I think could have waited to the Lincoln, Nebraska card, because you've basically got two regional guys that would headline any regional card. They're going against each other, Grant Dawson and Derek Minner. These are both guys I know pretty well. Grant comes from the Contender Series. It's interesting. Grant, kind of that guy in high school that told you what he wanted to be and you laughed at him. Well, guess what? He actually turned into a UFC fighter, and he's not actually been all that bad. I know a lot of comparisons out there, a lot of hype. Don't know about the USADA situation he went through, but I do know that he's probably a little bit irritated. Chaz Skelly pulled out of this fight twice. He obviously goes against a guy in a Minner that it knows very well. And basically, I think the interesting thing about this is going to be you've got two guys that took completely different paths to the UFC and probably have a little bit of resentment on Derek's side. He has a lot more experience. He's fought really, really good guys. He's fought another UFC vet and Cool Hand Luke Sanders. So it's going to be an emotional fight. And when you look at emotional fights, it's hard to know which way to go. Do you go with the guy that's got all the experience, or do you go with the guy that's got all the hype? To me, I think it's going to be a really exciting way to start the card. I'm going to go with the hype and go with Grant Dawson.
Yeah, I will as well. And the reason I am, if you saw the Michael Truzano fight, it's a very skilled fighter, a lot of grit in that one. You know what I mean? It was just a hard-fought battle, ended up getting the rear naked choke. I like what I saw on the ground with him. Really good transitions, really good pressure. But with a guy who's 14-1, mostly on the local circuit, of course, only 3 fights, if you include the Contender Series that got him into the UFC, only 3 fights at the UFC level. A lot of times, fighters like that, with that kind of a record, have trouble in a gritty fight against a guy with more UFC experience or some UFC experience. He had that test against Truzano, and he passed. And he passed with flying colors. Choked out a very, very tough dude. Everything you said is very, very accurate about both guys. And maybe Minner might have the enough kind of grit to get over this one. Usually fighters like this, 24-10, are usually on a better streak getting into the UFC. Only on a 2-fight win streak. All right, 3-2 in his last 5. Not bad. It's good, but he's won 2 in a row for the first time in a long time. So it's not like he's an experienced guy, but he's really straightening out and he's on a long streak heading into his UFC debut. We're not seeing that from Minner. So I think all the signs point to Grant Dawson winning this one.
Move up the card, Megan Anderson, Norma Dumont, Viana. Obviously, got another debut here with Dumont. I looked at her resume. I actually got to watch some kind of grainy footage of her. She looks good, but you don't really know the talent. It's hard to be a barometer of that. Good combos, great ground and pound. She actually, really good at transitions and trying to find submissions when on the ground. For me, though, Megan Anderson, man, this is another proven fight. I mean, we know all the good things Megan Anderson can do, but Megan Anderson has continually not lived up to expectations. You go back to, Holly Holm, you come in and talk about a girl that was calling out Cyborg every opportunity she got. She does a lot of things really good, though, and I think that gets overlooked because people see her as someone that didn't live up to her own height. Great height, uses range really well, crisp jab, underrated knees, does really good up against the cage, underrated ground game. People love James Krause. James has been working with Megan Anderson for a long time. I think that, Norma will surprise some people here because I saw a much better fighter than I expected to see in looking at her, but I think this is just too much experience Megan Anderson's way. If it doesn't go Megan's way, I think this is going to be one of those situations where maybe she's out. But at the same time, I think she understands these next couple fights and even the one she just went through, these are proven fights. And she knows that her career in the UFC is on the line. And I just don't think Megan Anderson is ready to walk away.
There are a few ins and outs for this fight that are I got to be honest about. First one is I'm calling Invicta next week with Megan Anderson, so I can't call against her. Just way too awkward. Can't do it. So I got to go with Megan Anderson regardless. But a thin division, to say the least. If there's a division where you can be forgiven for some losses and still say somewhere near the top, if there is a top of this division outside of the champion, it would be at 145. So Megan Anderson, normally, you might be thinking about getting your walking papers if you lose this fight. I think she has more cushion than that. Just because there aren't a lot of fighters at 145 for women's MMA, period. Big, physical. When she uses her range, she's very, very good. When she uses her ground skills effectively, she's very, very good. If you can get her moving backward, if you get her starting rounds badly, she hasn't shown the resilience to really turn things around, to change the trajectory of a fight that isn't going her way. She hasn't shown that kind of veteran savvy yet. If you remember the Holly Holm fight, it was on the Whitaker versus Romero card. I was there. I called that fight. Holly Holm kind of put it on her from the beginning. Great with the takedown, was on top a lot of pressure, and Megan just didn't have an answer for it. So we don't know anything about Viana. Of course, she's making her UFC debut in this fight. Only 4-0, not particularly experienced. If she can come out aggressively and get Megan Anderson moving backward, totally different fight. Totally different fighter and totally different fight. I don't think she necessarily does it. I'm picking Megan to win this one. But if she can be aggressive early, it can change the tone of this fight. And the losses, that is what has happened. Her physical gifts were taken away by someone being aggressive early.
I love how you just drop nuggets and then like expect that, much like I once trained a soccer mom to win a UFC fight. I'm not going to bring them back up. So would it be as awkward as Megan Anderson interviewing atom weights if you picked against her, or would it be less awkward?
I mean, flip a coin. Flip a coin. I just don't want to deal with it. When she interviews atom weights, that's not my problem. I can deal with that. But having to do like the open for Invicta, and she's like, yeah, you picked me to lose. F you. Yeah, she'd be upset, I think. So I'm going with Megan Anderson.
Chances she hear this are slim, but to revisit this,
you never know.
When you look at, well, first of all, we've mentioned before, they have a very good podcast of their own. Go check her and Lauren Sanko out if you want to do that after you've listened to the complete episode of this, as well as every back catalog episode we have. So shameless self-plug. We don't do that all that often. When I look at Megan, though, listen, here's the thing. I was there with Holly Holm lost too. I get it. It happened. But you are probably the biggest down talker I've ever met in my life of Holly Holm. So I don't know how much, that's a real. But
am I wrong? But am I wrong about Holly Holm? She always beats mid-level talent. She never beats elite level talent. It's not wrong. I think she's been thrown against the elite too many times, I think.
But you can't, I know like MMA math isn't going to come into play because we're going to talk about Dos Santos in just a moment here, but you can't like down talk Holly Holm this much and then not give her so much credit for beating Megan Anderson. The Kat Zingano win, I mean, come on, that really wasn't a win. You know that, and I know that.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Felicia Spencer loss was a big shock. Nobody expected her to lose like that when everything was on the line. And then, she's just now getting back on track. This is a girl, as much as I like her too, she's an incredible person. I've met her a number of times, never say anything bad about her. But listen, from a fan's perspective, this is a girl that from afar called out Cyborg for ages and ages and ages. And then when she got to the UFC, she stumbled. That's all there is to it. And that's not being mean to her. That's exactly what happened. I think she has more skills than she's been able to show, but I think she also is a smart enough girl to know, full division, thin division, whatever the case may be, you got to win these fights you're supposed to win. And this is one technically she's supposed to win. This is, kind of like a setup fight for her in a way.
Essentially, yes. This is, do you want to really have a future in this division? Now, we can argue about whether or not she'll get her walking papers should she lose. Okay, because that's win one, lose one. Maybe not. But if you want to get anywhere at 145 in the women's division, you have to do something with this fight. I totally agree with you on that one.
Moving up the card, light heavyweight, Ian Cutelaba, Magomed Ankalaev. Ankalaev rebounded well. I mean, this guy lost his debut, since we were just talking about debuts. 3 wins in a row, excellent striker, great power. Very fundamental, has a really nice front kick for range and spacing. Cutelaba, mixed results, I think. But when you look back at it, he's really kind of only lost to the high-level guys. And we talk about it all the time. Is this going to be one of those fights where you look back and say, he only loses to, kind of the elite? I think it says a lot about his fights, though, when I went back and watched them, especially when you talk about veterans beating him. He kind of telegraphs a lot of stuff, in particular his right hook. I think it's a mixture of things with that, where he doesn't really defend himself well. It's kind of a slow, like laborious shot. And I think just, when you get in there with veteran fighters that have seen a lot, they tend to read those things and they can overwhelm you at the wrong moment. So, what's going to read, by Glover Teixeira, or I don't want to say Jared Cannonier that much, maybe Misha Cirkunov, what they're reading versus what, a guy like Khalil Roundtree is going to read are two totally different things. And I think that's why he struggled against, the larger fighters. Whether he does that here or not, I don't know, but I think Ankalaev has the power to get rid of him early, and it may not even matter if he's going to be worrying about these tells.
I definitely agree with your analysis, but here's what I'm betting. Betting on Cutelaba, here's what I'm betting. That he learned from his losses to Teixeira, to Cannonier, to Cirkunov, and walks in a little bit better at those things. That he's cleaned those things up just enough to beat someone in Ankalaev who's never fought a name worth mentioning. He just hasn't. I mean, he's just getting started. Only 4 fights into his UFC career, hasn't done that much. He's still looking for that veteran name. Cutelaba, depending on how you define them, has lost and faced 3 of those. Misha Cirkunov, definitely a contender. Jared Cannonier, definitely a contender. Glover Teixeira, a veteran who fought for a title. I think he learns from those. The Khalil Roundtree win against a very dangerous and decorated striker, somewhat green in terms of MMA, doesn't have that, the background of those other names, but a decorated striker, and went at him very, very aggressively, put him on his heels, and finished him very quickly. I'm betting that Cutelaba took something away from those losses that makes him a little bit more savvy, because that's been, as you pointed out, his kryptonite. Not quite enough slickness, not quite enough savvy, not enough distraction and feints and those things. I think he adds a little bit of that to his game, just enough to win.
You sure you don't got like an interview or an extra podcast with him or something?
I'm doing nothing with him. Dude, I wouldn't do that to you, bro.
Just checking. I didn't know.
Somebody else. You were hurt. That there was pain behind you saying that. There was a little pain. There was a little pain. Don't worry about it.
Okay. All right, moving forward. I'm okay. I'm fine. I'll get it together.
Okay.
Tears at the end.
Seem a little hurt.
Felicia Spencer, Zahara Fain dos Santos. Man, Spencer lost to Cyborg, right? But at the same time, she put up a better performance than any of us expected. I think it kind of got Cyborg out of the UFC for that matter. Very good on the ground, probably where she wants us to go. Really strong, really durable. I mean, she went all 3 rounds with Cyborg, right? How many girls go all 3 rounds? They either get knocked out or knock her out, I guess, if you want to.
Or are mentally out of it before they start. Let's
True.
not forget that. I mean, she wins in the locker room.
Yeah. Well, Felicia was one of the first ones that really didn't. It didn't seem like it phased her. Like she just didn't care. Like, all right, whatever. You're Chris Cyborg. Watch what I'm going to do. I'll hang in here with you. As far as what she brings, great high kicks, very balanced, good left and right strikes. So Santos, if you want to do MMA math, right? I know you don't want to keep bringing this up because of the interview you just talked about, but she lost to Megan Anderson, right? So there's some MMA math we can throw in here. I'm not a big fan of. Great knees, good overhand punches, really good with pressure. I'm just telling you, whether it's too much hype or not, I respect any girl that can go all 3 rounds with Chris Cyborg, and it's going to be a while before I pick against Spencer. So I'm going to go with her to win this one.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on this one. I was at the Bama event when Dos Santos lost to Sinead Kavanagh. And her name's Sinead K.O. Kavanagh. She's an Irish fighter. And I remember this fight stands out to me because of the decision making. All Kavanagh can do is really throw heavy punches. She was a boxer in Ireland. That's really her thing. It's kind of the stand and trade kind of style. And it seemed to me during that fight, Dos Santos stood and traded at all the wrong times. It showed kind of a lack of maturity that obviously that was a while ago. It was 2016. I saw that same thing though in the Megan Anderson fight. And so do I think she's going to get over the hump against Felicia Spencer, who came up big against Megan Anderson? Not that there's any MMA math to this, but she was supposed to lose that fight. She was physically kind of outgunned in that Megan Anderson, the much naturally bigger fighter, the bigger name, big spotlight. And what happened? She tore her up on the ground. She knows where she can win fights. She couldn't get Cyborg there. And when she couldn't, she was forced to stand and trade on her feet, and she gave a reasonably good accounting of herself. And she had Cyborg backing up at moments. So even when denied her best asset, which, as you pointed out, is her ground game, her top game, her pressure, she still had a good accounting of herself. I think she brings way too much for Dos Santos in this fight.
Move up, main fight. Main fight? Is that main event? What am I saying?
Sure.
What am I saying? I don't know.
We're main fight. Yeah. Whatever.
Main fight. You know what's really thrown me off? I'm gonna be honest with you. We waited a really long time for the Ferguson and Khabib fight, and the poster came out, and I've never been so let down by a poster in my life. Then when I look at the poster for this card, I was like, that's a pretty good looking poster. If we didn't have a global disease outbreak for me to be concerned with, I'd probably be taking the trip down to Norfolk for this.
So a global disease outbreak is going to keep you from going to Norfolk, Virginia?
Well, no, it was just the amount of money I've lost the past few days.
Oh,
that prevented.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah,
stock market
prevented me from, making any extra trips anywhere, like to eat. But regardless, we'll move forward. To me, this is a good. I guess what I'm saying is this is a good poster. You're in the area, you want to support the UFC, and you want something cool to hang on your wall. This might be a good one to go to. But when we look at the main event here, Figueredo off a win of Tim Elliott. This is a guy, man, rarely takes a step back, but hands always low, works well behind his punches, nice uppercuts up close. He mixes in his kicks. A dynamic striker, has, spinning back fist elbows. I'm just reading kind of notes, going back and watch. It's a fun one to research, by the way, too. Yeah. Super versatile, throws anything, anytime. And that's kind of the problem. Like, he has really good power early, but he's so dynamic that I don't want to say he has a cardio issue. I don't want to say that it's anything more than just like pacing. Like, his pacing tends to wear down. His power tends to wear down. It's kind of interesting the way you watch him fight from round 1 to round 5. It's not like we talk about sometimes with speed. It's just like fights tend to get more laborious for him than they should. On the other side of this, Benavidez has been around a long time. He's fan favorite. I think at this point, I don't know who doesn't want to see him win a championship just because of what he's given to MMA. Great boxing, incredible movement, nice high kicks. Probably mixes up shots better than Figueiredo does. Uses the strikes to work in takedowns, and I really think that's where the difference is going to be. He can stand with anybody, but he also has the really decent, really good, rather, ability to maintain range, and I think that's what this is going to come down to. He's going to be staying away from that power. He's going to be able to have a guy that's going to wear down naturally, and then unfortunately, at the end of this fight, if he needs to, he can just go for takedowns and wrestling and point fight this thing out if he wants to put that game plan in. I don't think that Joseph Benavidez wants to work as long as he has in the UFC to get to a title fight finally and turn it into a slugfest. I think he's going to come in here with a really smart game plan, and I think that game plan is going to be just that. Wear this thing all 5 rounds. It's the flyweight division anyway, even though he's coming off a knockout, but regardless. Wear this thing out, get your wrestling, get your takedowns, and point fight this thing away and get a belt, man.
For the flyweight division, which is fast and explosive and dynamic, I think Figueiredo is a dynamic representative of the weight class. I think he's pretty quick for even a 125-pounder. But it's hard to pick against the ground game, the versatility, and the experience of Joseph Benavidez. That's kind of the issue. The only way I see Figueiredo, not only, but the most likely way Figueiredo wins this fight is stunning him in early first-round knockout. If Benavidez is smart, which he is a very smart fighter, stays away from the power in the first round, wears him down, he's great in scrambles, great top pressure, excellent ground and pound, merciless in close-range situations, I think that's where he owns this fight 4th and 5th round. And as you said, that championship, look, this guy's waited a long time for this opportunity. This is a division that might have disappeared underneath him. He was the forgotten man at 125 pounds. Henry Cejudo, DJ, and then, Joseph Benavidez. Great fighter. Great fighter. So, that's the thing to me, is that I truly believe Joseph Benavidez brings all that savvy and all that frustration into this fight, but he controls a lot of it. Smart game plan, probably wins by decision. But we will know at the end of round 1 what kind of fight this is going to be, because I think that's Figueiredo's greatest chance to pull the upset is in round 1, maybe round 2. while he's still explosive and accurate. Once it gets in around 3 and 4, takedown becomes more of a factor. The grind becomes more of a factor. That's where Joseph Benavidez thrives.
Yeah, you're right. I think I've even overlooked that since you said it. He did fight Demetrius Johnson back at UFC on Fox for a championship, but it's been years. That was 2013. Then it's been years for that opportunity. And to be honest with you, that was and probably still would have been if not for some, that really good trade. I forget who did they trade to get Demetrius Johnson. That really good wrestler guy. What was his name? Guy.
What's his name?
Yeah, that worked out so well. Yeah, I forgot how well that worked out. Yeah, this would pretty much still probably be Demetrius Johnson's division if, we hadn't had that incredible trade that I'm sure they'll write novels about for years to come. And I guess Demetrius leaving in a way opened this division up. And I wouldn't mind seeing a guy like Joseph Benavidez be the one that kind of takes reins of the division now. And I feel like if he gets the title, it's going to be a while before he lets it go. So with that said, we appreciate you guys checking this out. And we will be back in the week with more commentary.